All right. Welcome everybody back to another Orbit Live Let's Build stream. As always, I'm Brett, and we're going to continue with our Amazon Bedrock knowledge base work that I think we did a couple weeks ago. I missed last week, just had some scheduling conflicts and stuff. So we're back. I did refresh my memory on this because 2 weeks is a long time. And I was like, geez, what did we do? So I pulled up the Readme file here that we kind of create as our to-do list. And you can see at the bottom, let's start with the bottom. What did I do between streams? Okay, so a couple things, right? Kind of like a Minecraft stream. Between streams, how much mining did you do that you're not going to show us? So here's what I did. There was, if you remember back to the previous stream, we had an issue with creating our OpenSearch vector database, or I guess it's not a vector database at this point. It's a OpenSearch serverless collection. And of course, after the stream was over, I realized what I had done. And we deploy everything with GitLab. We have a role set up, and that role defaults to CA Central 1 because that's where, well, most of our customers operate. So I'll show you what I did. All I did was I went into our CI deployment script, and I just added, well, we had profile because we always need the profile, but I just overrode the region in the profile so that I could make sure, well, that it was right. Because what was happening was we were trying to deploy the OpenSearch collection into CA Central 1, and it's not supported there. So all I did was added this, and then in our variables for the deployment, I added US East 1 just to override everything. So that fixed that. And the other thing that I did between the streams was fixed up those bad stack names. If you remember, I can't remember what parameter I was passing into the stack names, and it wasn't going into the stack names for whatever reason. And I was ending up with, stack name dash with an empty parameter name dash something else. So just, it was triggering my OCD, and I didn't like it. So I fixed that up. So that's why I've got this guy done. The other thing that I thought we would do is, I know last week, I'm going to call this future updates. And we'll just go like this. Deploy OpenSearch. So if you remember last week, I made the decision to deploy this in a non-VPC configuration. And I know that's bad because it essentially makes the OpenSearch collection publicly available. Now, we're going to put policies in place and stuff like that to limit access, but still best practice would be to deploy this somewhere more secure. And the more secure here would be within a VPC. So now I have a private collection. I have much more control over who or what has access to it. I thought for version 1 of this, to try to get it all working, we could do it this way and just see sort of how we make out, get it all working, and then we can kind of go back in later. And I know it's just a demo project anyways, sort of a POC thing, so we can kind of retrofit this. But I would say that if you are planning on doing this for real, you would want that VPC there first and always deploy services into the VPC where it's supported in order to give you that extra layer of protection. Okay, so we'll leave that as our future updates. And I'm going to change this a little bit. So really what we did was we created our collection, and I'll show you this. I deployed this before we started the stream so that we didn't have to sit and wait for OpenSearch collection to come to life, because it does take a little bit of time to do that. And sort of as I was getting ready, I realized that we're not really done with our OpenSearch collection at this point. So there's a couple policies that I think we should put in here. We need an encryption policy, which I'm like 99% sure we have there already, but we'll check that. And then we need I'm going to call it, I'm not sure if these are the right names for it, but there's a network policy, and then there is a data access policy. And I'm kind of learning this as we go. So I found this myself after I deployed all the stacks today, before we were getting ready for the stream. I basically went in and just checked everything So what I'm going to say is the serverless collection, and I'll show you this. We'll jump into the account. The collection is there, but there's a bunch of policies that I think we need in addition to just the collection. Okay, so we'll work on that today as well. And then ultimately, what I'd like to see if we can do, I only have about an hour today, and I'd like to see if we can finish up the serverless collection, get these policy documents in place, and make a good run at the knowledge base so that maybe either, if everything goes perfectly smooth, which it never does, we could have our knowledge base up and running, and we'll dump some blog posts in it as a test. Okay. So that's where we are with that. Let me jump over to the console, which I'm not logged into. Give me 1 second. And I'll show you kind of pull this up here. Sure. All right. So here we are in our demo account. I'm in CA Central, so got to go back to Northern Virginia. And if we go under serverless dashboard, get rid of all these guys. Here's our collection. So this is what I deployed already. And this is kind of what I noticed today. And I didn't realize it last week or the week before. See these here? So we've set up encryption settings, but it's asking us to do some other things. So we can't actually access our collection until we get a network access policy in place and a data access policy in place. So I think obviously that's the next logical step to try to get this done. Okay. So with that in mind, let's go over to PyCharm. And I did notice one thing that I don't think makes sense anymore. If we go to the OpenSearch template, see what I did last week? I just called this the security policy, which is not a great reference or logical name for this in CloudFormation. This is really our encryption policy. Okay? And remember, we have to refer to these different policy types. This is going to be also, as we're learning how this goes, this is not going to work because you'll notice here, we've got different policy types. And if I have to, what I want to do in here is I want to obviously have all of my different policy types. What did I say? I need 3, right? I need the encryption policy, I need the network policy, and I need the data access policy. I don't like to hard code things, but I think in this situation, it might actually make more sense. So I'm going to take this, we're going to dump it here. I'm going to leave this policy type just as a shortcut for now. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're changing logical names, so this might really mess things up on the CloudFormation side. But what we're going to do is we're going to change all of these so they're more appropriate. So we're going to say encryption. Okay, so this is our encryption policy for our OpenSearch. It's not really the vector DB, it's more the collection. Okay, if I'm understanding it right. And then this is a little bit of a pain, but we hard coded this. How did we do this? Let's see, actually. Maybe we can remove some of the hard coding. Give me a second. Let's go over and have a look at the documentation for the OpenSearch collection. And we'll go to returns. So we get a collection ID, an ARN, an endpoint, a dashboard, and an ID. So we're not going to get the name. So yeah, we're going to have to leave that hard coded by the looks of it. Okay, well, can't always get what we want, right? So there's our encryption policy. I know that this deployed successfully last time. How do I want to do this? I'm gonna reorder this, and it just doesn't make a difference for what we're doing, what CloudFormation will do for us, but just the logical order of it. Let's deploy this again, because I'm not quite sure what this is going to do because we're changing the logical name, right? So let's do that first. So push that. And let me just see, am I in? Yeah, I am. So I'm in our little demo project already. So let's go to pipeline and see what this guy's up to. Now, I deployed all of this about, I don't know, 45 minutes ago, just to make sure I didn't have any, oh, look, famous last words, right? I was like, it should deploy. What did I do wrong? Typically for unresolved dependencies, encryption. Resource, what did I do? Oh, look what I did. Duh. I left the ref in there, which obviously we don't need anymore. And let's just check this to make sure, maybe before we do anything else, we try to deploy it and have to come back to it again. Like, what else could we possibly need in here? Description, a name, a policy, and a type. So that's it. Types, encryption, or network. Okay, let's do it again. Go back over here. Hopefully this time it'll work. It's always the simple little things that you do that you're like, oh yeah, this won't break anything. You know what I've done? I've put a depends on somewhere else, I think. Right here, see this? I won't bother changing the commit message. Third time's a charm? Let's see. Hopefully it'll do the trick here. Right. A little better. Didn't fail right away, right? There we go. There's our OpenSearch. So now if we go back over here, we go to CloudFormation and we find our OpenSearch stack. We should have a change set. And okay, this makes sense, right? It's going to remove the security policy and it's going to recreate our new policy, which is essentially the same thing. Sometimes when you change these logical IDs like this, it can mess with CloudFormation. So let's see what happens. I'm not 100% convinced that this will actually work. Yeah. Okay, so see what's happened here. Given encryption policies conflicting with an existing policy. Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do this. Now, I remember something here in this documentation that said the policy is required. Let's go back and look at collection. You must create a matching encryption policy in order for the collection to be. We might be kind of stuck here. So I'll fix this later. Let's see if we can revert our changes back to what we had. And we'll leave this as the badly named generic security policy thing. Okay. And all we'll change here is we'll just get rid of this part. Okay, so that should work. Let's just make sure this deploys properly now. Let's just check. Yeah, no change set now because everything's back to the way it was. All right, perfect. So now what we need is, remember, if we go back over to OpenSearch, pull that up, and we can see the two errors that we're getting. Right, if we select this, we've got a green check mark here, but we need a network access and a data access policy. All right, so let's get that network access done. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Sorry. Here we go. Drag this. So we need now a... Yeah, this is encryption and network. Okay, we'll name this properly this time, and I'll fix it later. Let me actually add this here. I'm just going to call it fixes. I'll do that off stream later on. So that's that. All right. So then I'm just going to grab this, and this is going to be our network policy. So we'll name this one appropriately now. This becomes network. Now, this here, I wish the format was a little different. It's a JSON document. Let me show you what I found. We're just going to use a generic one to get us started. And where the heck did I find that? I should have put a note here. Give me a second. If I can find the page I was looking at. Yeah, I'm going to put this here. We'll add another section to our README. And we'll just call this references. So we'll add that there. So all this is, if I go over to Firefox, I'm just going to use this as our little bit of a cheat sheet because we do need an access policy. So you can see this is slightly different, security policies versus access policies. Okay. And we've got the encryption policy set up already. Now we need this. And I'm going to use the rule that they have here, but we're going to verify that it all makes sense for what we're doing. So if I go back here, we're in the network policy and we'll just, so a couple things, there's a bunch of hard-coded things here. So we've got to change this. Dashboard resource, allow from public. Not what we want to do long-term, but to try to get this working today, I think that's what we'll do. And it doesn't, I'm going to do that. The vector database doesn't actually need that. Here's another thing that's sort of mislabeled, isn't it? Not really a vector database, it's a collection. So we'll just add that for future reference. And let's do this. And then since I changed that, we say, okay. So CloudFormation, we should have a new change set here. And all this should have in it is that network policy. So let's execute that. Okay, that looks good. So if we go back and refresh, okay, we've got an encryption and our network access. And if you're looking here, you can go down here and look at them. Okay, so there's our network, there's our encryption. Now we need our data access policy. And I'm going to borrow from this example again. here's our data access policy. So we're going to grab this whole thing, go back over to PyCharm, and we'll add that here. We're going to call it data access policy. Yes. All right, so access. So what this is doing is it's providing the CloudFormation user access to the index. There's our permission statement. So AOS S star. And then we need to get this guy. Oh, look at that. It's a typo there, isn't it? To change that. So fix this. Did I do the same thing over here? Okay, no, that's fine. And then the principal is, what's our principal in this case? Well, this here, we have a CFN user in here, and this will give the CFN user full access to this thing. Well, kind of makes sense. Let me go grab that from, bear with me a second. I can get the ARN for that. Find it here. So we'll take this. We're going to put that here. So okay, that's our Eric rule. And I always use camel case. It starts like that. And we're gonna do the same thing again. Again, totally not necessary, but I'm just kind of keeping it the same way. Add a data access policy. So let's jump back over to Firefox and see how we do here. While I'm waiting. Give me a second here. All right, so that's good. Let's go back over here. New change set. I should have two things here, right? We're modifying our network policy because we have that typo. So that is not going to replace that resource. That's great. And then we're adding a new one. So let's execute it. Again, pretty simple. So if we go back and refresh. All right, great. So we got rid of all the warnings. So in theory here, we might have to fiddle with this a little bit, but in theory, we now have this working the way that we needed to, right? So great. Okay. So if we go back to our checklist, I'm going to say that these tasks are done, knowing that maybe there's a problem somewhere in one of those things that we're going to have to go back and fix. So now we're down to actually creating the Bedrock Knowledge Base itself. And let me pull up what we need to do for that. Amazon has this really well documented, but I think I closed that as well. So here, hold on. what I'll do is once I find the setup instructions for this again, we will, I'll add those to our references. Now this is the page that I've been following. So let me add it here. Perfect. So if we go and have a look at that page. So if we think about the prereqs, is kind of where we were still working. We've got our files prepared already. If you remember from last week, we got lucky in the fact that the website uses Markdown files, and Markdown is supported in knowledge bases. So there's nothing for us to do there. That's going to work fine. We've got our vector database or our vector store set up as, as far as we know it's set up. And now we need a service role for Bedrock. So let's open this up and see what we need to do here. So since it's a role, we need a trust relationship. Bedrock can assume this role as long as it's coming from a particular account and as long as it's particular region. And then we need different permissions based on what we need to do. I can't remember if we did this already. So let's go back to PyCharm. And if we did, it would be an IAM. Yeah, we did this already. So here's our Bedrock IAM role. Bedrock can assume it as long as it's coming from our account, any knowledge base. And then what did we do here? We're allowing model access. We're allowing S3. So for now, our repository is going to be S3. That's where all of our data is going to go. And then we've got the Bedrock access there. Let's just check the documentation. Is there anything else we need? So there's a trust. This is access to the Bedrock models. Oh, you know what? What did we do for that? Okay, we put them in. If you remember last week too, if you remember last week, we said we're going to use the Amazon Titan text v1. I think that's what we decided to do, to use as the embedding model. So this is how we're going to basically populate the vector database. So I think we're good there. Access to S3, we've got that set up already. This, I don't think we have, right? Did we put this in here? AOSS API access all. Oh, yeah, it's there. Okay. So that's our collection reference. So that's good. I think we've got this all set. We're not using an Aurora database cluster. We're not using secrets manager. We do have KMS, but we're using the built-in keys. So I think we're fine there. This retrieve and generate, we put there already. We're not doing cross-account access, so we're good there. That looks good. I think we're okay here. I think we've got this all covered. And then extra security configurations. Let's actually see what this is. Yeah, this is something we're going to come back to. We're going to use, a customer managed key. We can sort of augment what we've done later on. But I think for today, as I mentioned, I'd like to see if we could get that knowledge base running. Okay, so that's good. I think we've got all the prereqs done. We've set up our data store. So this is what we did already. Here are the supported file formats that are supported. There we go, as part of our knowledge base. And as I mentioned already, what we're doing for now is Markdown files. We're not adding metadata to anything. Okay, so that's good. If we say set up our data source, we've got that. Set up our vector index. All right, so this is kind of where we are now. We've got our collection built already. Now we have to create the vector index inside of that collection. Okay. And the way that we do that, this confused me. I had to do a little reading on this. I don't know why, but in my brain, I was thinking inside the OpenSearch serverless section here, I would find a vector database that we would use, but it's actually in Bedrock. And I hate the way this is all organized. Bedrock. There we go. And what we're doing is we're creating a knowledge base. So it's really not too complicated. I think what we'll probably run into is in this knowledge base configuration here, what we need to get set up. So let's go back to PyCharm. And we're going to, okay, we've got a Bedrock here already. So we'll say knowledge base. And if you remember, we cheated last week and created our little skeleton chunk of code. So we'll say Bedrock resources, and we've got sort of our default tags that we're going to use. And then let's create our resources section. Now I'm going to open up this page somewhere else. Let me just copy this, the documentation page that I pulled up for CloudFormation in Bedrock, and then that way I can see it at the same time. Okay. So let's just call this Bedrock It's definitely not an S3 bucket. There we go. So the first thing is we need a description. And I think in some of these other things, we had some descriptions. Okay, so we can use that. Which Bedrock? There we go. That makes more sense, right? What's next? We've got our knowledge base. This is also not right. It's configuration. And for now, I'm just going to do what we always do, and we're just going to say to do. We'll come back to that. We need a name. And how did we name some of these other things? I'll use IAM again. So this. Dump that in here, and we'll just call this Bedrock Knowledge Base. Can't spell knowledge base. There we go. The role ARN, we're going to come back to this because we'll use the import statement to do that. We've got a storage configuration. Let's add it for now. I'm not even sure what that is. Configuration. And then we have tags, which we will borrow from somewhere else because we want all the tags to be the same. Okay, so let's go and see if we can figure out the knowledge base config. I'll pull that up. So first thing is we need a type definition, and it's only one possible type. It's a vector. We're getting a little bit of interesting responses here from, I guess it's not called Code Whisper anymore. It's QDeveloper. This. Then we've got a bunch of other configuration items in here. Oh, okay. So all we need here is our embedding model ARN. I'm going to leave that as to do because we're going to have to look up those ARNs. I don't know where to find those, but this is where we're going to select. It's either there's the 3 supported ones. So we'll find those. What's next? The role ARN. So this is the ARN from our IAM stack. So we're going to do this. IAM stack. Okay, just like we do before. And there's got to be somewhere that we've used. Remember, I think last week we used the intrinsic function import value, which I can never remember. I'm just hoping there's a simple example. I should put this in the cheat sheet, right? Did we not use it? We've used it somewhere. We did not. Okay, hang on one second. You'd think at some point this would stay in my head, but it does not. You know what we could do? We could borrow from one of our other demo projects. Bear with me a sec. I'll find a demo project here. Again, because we use this so much, it's got to be here. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do, the very first thing I'm going to do, let's go back to PyCharm. Let's go to our skeleton here. And I know this isn't going to be, actually, let's put it in the Readme instead. I don't know what to call this. Let's just call it that. There's the little chunk of code we need. It's not even hard to remember, but I can never remember that. So if we go back here, we're going to do this. We're going to say that comes from IAM stack. And then we just need to get the export. Look at that. We didn't do. Okay, hold on. So we've got to add an output section. And what we need is the ARN of that roles. So normally what we do is we'll do this. I almost always call them the same thing. Export, and then there's our name. Now, Bedrock is included in the stack names, I think. Let's just double check that. We can close that. Yeah, so we've got Bedrock in the names already. Okay. So that means what we need here is, yeah, that's fine. That should work. We'll say role ARN. And then we just need to dump that here, like so. Now, before I go any further, what we're going to do is we're going to push this update. And I know this is partially, there's a bunch of to-dos and PyCharm's going to complain here, but we're going to do it anyways, because what I want is we need that output to be available from the IAM stack so that we can import it over here. It's easier just to do it now. So I know we've made a lot of changes here. So let's do this. Feature added, missing what IAM stack. Okay, so see it's complaining here saying commit anyways. So that's fine. We jump back over to GitLab. So if we go over here, find the IAM stack here, we should have a change set, but the change set will look empty because all we're doing here is we're setting up a new output. We'll say execute. Then we'll just make sure that that output value is actually populated before we move on. So we can select the output tab. There it is. Okay, so that's the ARN that uniquely identifies the role that we want to use. Perfect. So we should be able to continue on now with our Bedrock piece. Give me one sec. So that's good. That should pick that up. Let's have a look at the storage config. Don't know if we actually need this or not. It is a required section. All right. So what do we need to do here? Oh, this is where we're actually defining the OpenSearch configuration. So we're going to do this. And it supports OpenSearch, Pinecone, RDS, and oh, we need a type definition too. Now this, I'm going to actually go like, I'm going to make this a reference storage type. Up here. we're going to say the default is open. And then, as I mentioned, it also supports Pinecone and RDS. So we set that up. That way, if we ever, we're trying to make something that doesn't have hard-coded things wherever we can. So let's have a look at what we need in the OpenSearch config. So we need a collection ARN. So we'll put the to-do folder there. We need field mapping, which is another to-do. And then vector index name, which is a string, but we'll leave to do. All right, so we got to figure this part out. The collection ARN, I think that is an output value from our OpenSearch. So this should actually, again, badly named, right? But we're going to, this should work for now. We're going to have to rename a bunch of these things. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, I'm going to call it OpenSearch stack just to shorten it up. And then we can copy this input function here. Dump it. I already forget what I called it. OSS. And over here, close a couple things down. It's just -arm. Probably isn't enough at this point, but let's see if we can get it to work. So that's that. Now the field mapping piece. There is a specific thing that in the documentation that they ask you to do. So if we go back over here, where is it? Let me show you what I'm looking at. We've got our collection ARN for step 2. Index, create a vector index. That's what we're defining right now. Enter the name. So we're going to set that up. Actually, let's set the name up right now so we don't, we can kind of follow along. What we're going to do is we're going to use this same thing here. And we'll call this DB. So that should give it a name. Vector fields. Vector field name, provide the name for your field. Engine, dimensions. Now I wonder what we need here. Oh, okay, look at here. So field description, Bedrock chunks, the raw text for your data and your stores into this field. So our name is whatever we would like, and then we've got other fields. How do we do this? Does it give us an example of this? Here, let me pull this back up. So we're under storage config. We're under OpenSearch, and we're doing this field mapping. So you can see metadata field, text field, vector field. I wonder if there's just a simple example they give us that we could build off of. Sometimes they do a good job at this, sometimes they don't. Okay, here we go. OpenSearch serverless vector collection. Perfect. Type is vector. Oh, right here. So we've got this already. Got this already. Okay, here's our field name. Let's try it. We're going to use CFN test, but I already forget what I copied. Oops. That back there. Let's call this, well, let's call it let's build Twitch vector. Our text field is text. Our metadata field is metadata. I have no idea if this is going to work. What we might end up having to do here if this doesn't work is work backwards by creating this through the management console and see what we actually need here and then build it out. All right. And then all we're left with is the embedding ARN. Now I want to go back to the documentation and see, do they have an example of this here? Here's the embedding ARN. Yeah. Okay. And we do want to use Titan. So we're going to use their same thing here. I think this should get us to a state that's working. We're going to get rid of the quotes because we don't. The rest of this can stay the same because I want to use Amazon Titan for embedding. I think that's it. Okay, so then if we go back and have a look, I don't think we'll need any outputs from this, but let's set this up. So we get a knowledge base ID, we get an ARN. Okay, so let's output those two values just in case we need them for something. So let's set up our output section. Outputs. Wow. Okay, there we go. So we're going to say Bedrock Knowledge Base name is value ref this. I think it was just a ref that did that. And then we'll let it fill it in like that. Then we'll double check these. ARN value becomes get attribute. Export. I don't know how I did this stuff before Q. Q for developers. I think that's what this is, right? I definitely typed a lot more. Now let's just check that I've got these right. So we're saying to get the name, it's just a ref, and then to get the ARN, it's a get attribute. So let's just double check. Oh, sorry, folks, I'm on the wrong screen. How many times do I do that? I've even got the little cheat window up here in the corner. See? That's not actually going to work. Ref gives us the ID. Yeah, this is where, if you ever listen to the podcast, you'll hear me say all the time that these are great tools, but you have to verify the info it's giving. I just did it again. Look at what I did. I just changed these logical IDs. So we've got ID, the ref gives us the ID. Here's our ARN. We're running a get attribute, but it's .knowledge base ARN. Alexa, stop. All right, let's go back to Firefox and created that. So we got knowledge base ARN, got knowledge base ID. There is actually no name that comes back. Okay, that's good. In theory, this should work. So we're going to go back here. We're going to add our CloudFormation validation, which is going to be Bedrock Knowledge Base. And then I'm just going to cut and paste one of these guys. And we'll call this Bedrock. Actually, let's call it, because we might have, we'll call it Bedrock Knowledge Base. Call this. Now this we have to populate. We need the IAM stack, which would just be IAM. And then what was the other one that we added? OpenSearch, which is this. I think that was it. OSS stack. Is that what we called it? Yeah, right there. So we're going to pass those in. Parameter overrides. So those are our variables. And since we need both the IAM and open source, I know they're already there already, but I'm just going to add these in. And it's just insert fly. There we go. Got it. This here, we need the applications. Let's actually do it like this. So the IAM stack equals IAM stack. And then, oops. Just do this instead. It won't tap. I think that should work. We do not need capabilities. Before we deploy, is there anything else? Oops. Oh man. What's happened here? There we go. We've got no to-dos here. We've got our outputs defined. Okay, let's add this. I don't know if knowledge base is 1 or 2 words. I think it's 2 words. Well, we made it past the validation stage. That's always good. All right. Not out of the woods yet. So here's our change set. All we're adding is a misspelled logical ID, which we'll have to fix. Okay, so let's say execute. And while we're waiting on that to fail, what's going on with my keyboard, Melissa? Ah, tags expected found JSON array. That's the problem when you're cutting and pasting stuff. It wants the tags in a slightly different format. Let's go back over here and have a look at the actual documentation for this. Where did it go? See if it gives us an example. Do they include tags? No examples of tags. See, tag. Am I in the right place? Knowledge base. Yeah. It's key value pairs. And it's key and value. Oh, hold on. Let's just, let's do this. Let's go back and look at, so if we go IAM, template, see here. What is this? I just want to compare the documentations. If we go, see this key value. So I think if I'm reading that documentation correctly, actually, let me show you this first. So we've got this stack that we need to delete now because it failed, right? Because if we don't delete that and we try a new deploy, we're going to get an error. Let's go back to PyCharm. And I think really what it's asking us for is to do it like this. One day I'm going to figure out why these are all, not all, but why certain things are slightly different. I'm sure there's a reason. Okay, it's not complaining about that, but I don't know about these. Let's go have a look at what it's asking for again. Key value. Object of a string. I can never remember these, so I want to say it's actually like this. Let's try it again. And it's still coming to life. There we go. So same thing, right? Adding a new. Oh, I didn't change the logical ID. Forgot. If it fails again, there we go. Storage configuration, okay, so this is probably just a spacing issue. I didn't really look very closely, so let's delete that. Now, first things first, Bedrock, so we can clean that off of our fix list. And it was complaining about this. I think this probably needs to go like that, but we're going to check this configuration. I think I just had that tabbed in when it shouldn't have been. We go back to the documentation and we look at storage config. Yeah, see, I had type like it was part of the OpenSearch serverless config, which isn't going to work. Let's see if that cleaned up. It's still in the process of cleaning up. Delete in progress. I don't know why sometimes the rollback takes forever. Probably because we're waiting for it. I don't like this name either. Bedrock Knowledge Twitch, Bedrock Knowledge Base. So what if these are the little things that that trigger me? Let's go here. What could we call that instead? We call that as a better name. Bedrock. So Bedrock Knowledge, if we go back here, Bedrock Knowledge is the application name. So I name everything, right? So Bedrock Knowledge, maybe it's Bedrock Knowledge Twitch. Go have a look because we're still waiting for this thing to oh, there it goes. Okay. So here's our application, right? So the application is Bedrock Knowledge Twitch. So we'll get rid of Bedrock. I know, silly, right? We don't really need it. CI changed stack name. I already forget the other thing we did. We fixed space OSS configuration. Configuration like that. Give it another whirl. Oh, no. Oh, look. Oh, sorry, folks. On the wrong screen again. I remember I fixed the logical name, but the logical name for our Bedrock Knowledge Base is also referred to in our stacks or in our outputs. Sorry. So we got to go here now. And we got to actually go like this because the typos down here too, right? Oh, look, and even here, Bedrock. Bedrock. Okay. Success. We didn't get stuck on the validate phase. Here goes the knowledge base. We should have a stack here now. Our change set is ready to go. Execute that. The knowledge base storage configuration is invalid. Forbidden. Bedrock agent. Huh? That one I'm not sure about. I bet you it's probably... Oh, I know what it is. It's the access, one of the access policies isn't right. I'll show it because we gave CloudFormation full access, but we didn't give me full access. And I'm actually running this is the way I understand it. If we open up CloudTrail, good old CloudTrail history. This might take a minute for it to come to life. What I want to see is if there's any, there should be an error code in here, some sort of permission denied, right? That might take a little bit of time to come to life. I'll show you what I'm thinking though. Remember when we created an OpenSearch, we created the data access policy. So we're saying access for CFN user. And this is the CFN user ID right here that has essentially all the access to the Amazon OpenSearch collection. I think we need another one of these. How do we create? I know this is totally wrong structure. I just want to see what this structure looks like. Oh, my tab won't work. I'm making it worse. Hold on. So see these rules? Really what I want is I want to create... I wonder if we just did something like this. There are rules. There's our resource. Yeah, I don't know what the structure of this is. I think what we need to do is we need to put the ARN that I'm using here as well. Let's go back to CloudFormation or CloudTrail for a second and see if it's updated. Create knowledge base. See, this is me trying to create that knowledge base. It's invoked by CloudFormation, but it's us that's running it. See this here? This is my ARN. Knowledge base is invalid. See, that's a little, that doesn't look like, oh, so yeah, there's a forbidden error there. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to call it here. I'll figure this out and we'll get ready for the next stream. We'll be back on Tuesday. Pretty good progress this week. So hopefully we'll see you back next Tuesday. It'll either be another afternoon stream or we'll shift it back to early evening. But until then, I hope you have a great week and we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.